Welcome to the third meeting of the year for Arundel Camera Club. This evening's going to turn most of the meeting over to Jerry Taylor very shortly, and you'll hear very, very little from me if all goes well. Want to take a look, however, as John always does, take a look at the calendar for the rest of the month. And here are some important things you may want to pay attention to. This Saturday, the Barnstormers, that Mike has put up a couple of notices in the Arundel Camera Club Facebook group about the Barnstormers tour. I've been up there several times in Frederick for this. It's an outstanding opportunity to get some really nice pictures. The weather's going to be great. Go to the links and information in Mike's post to get some background on that. On the 16th next week, this time, more professionally operated than what I'm doing this evening will be David Trazo on local adjustment tools in Lightroom, which should be really informative for you. Now, our next field trip, or first field trip of the year, will be Gambrel State Park, and then our first contest of the year will be an open digital contest. We talked all about those last week, and if you want to go back and just refresh your memory on what that's about, take a look at last week's PowerPoint on the website, and that'll give you some preliminaries, and I'll send out an email shortly on what that's all about. And just quickly, last is our speaker for the 30th. Chris was able to get Les Picker. He is an outstanding photographer, National Geographic photographer, very active in the area and really quite good. Now, the critique session that we're going to do this evening is going to take up the rest of the evening. And I just want to give you a little bit of background. There are 4 of them this year. I've got everybody signed up for this one, obviously. We have 1 out of 6 slots left in October, and a few more slots left in November, and all of December unfilled. So if you find tonight interesting and you'd like to give it a shot in the future, let us know, and we'll slug you in and get you all ready for it. Now, each session is kind of set up to look like what this picture, on which I used on last week's slideshow, is. A good critique session could be some photographers sitting around a table with their pictures and having a conversation. And so we want to try to replicate that online tonight, and we'll do the very best we can. And for some of the protocols for the on and the off here, Mike, could you kind of jump in here and explain how things will work this evening in terms of feedback and questions? Okay, Mike, are you there?
Yeah, I was about ready to say to use your space bar to unmute yourself, but I was actually typing at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll be in the chat room to help out answer questions, Zoom related technical questions and like that, and to help keep this meeting basically on track if we run afoul of anything. Again, you can mute or unmute your mic with a simple keyboard shortcut of Shift, Command or Control A for audio, or V for video if you want to turn your camera on and off. If you are muted and you just want to chime in real quickly, you can hit and hold your space bar to unmute your mic.
So what we'd like to do, if you're one of the 6 photographers, you unmute and ask your question and mute. But during the 15 minutes, Lewis will be our first photographer. During his 15 minutes, we want to give him the whole time. And then if you have questions, that would be at the end if we have time. And if you're observing tonight, then please use the chat feature, which is not all that different from the chat feature in Facebook Live. So if there aren't any questions, we're going to go ahead and get going. Did I miss anything, Mike, that you think of, or Jerry?
No, I think, okay, on with the show.
Okay, I'd like to introduce our critique leader this evening. That's Jerry Taylor. He's with the Maryland Photography Alliance. He's a certified judge. He's got all kinds of credentials. He has a very scholarly approach to photography. So he really takes his time and thinks about it. And that's what really helps make his feedback particularly valuable. His home photo club is the Mountain Christian Church Photo Club. And he's also a member of the Baltimore Camera Club and some others around the area. And I really go to Jerry on some things. I really trust his judgment, and I think he'll give you some excellent feedback this evening. Now, if you want to take a look at Jerry's work, he has a website, jerrytaylorphoto.com, nice, clean, and simple name. And you can agree with me, it really is just absolutely outstanding work. So, Jerry, what I want to do now is bring up our first photographer, Lewis, and here are the 4 photos that Lewis submitted, and I have single slides for each of the 4 to follow that. So I'd like to give a minute or so for you to take a look at these and for the members, and then we can go ahead and give Lewis his 15 minutes due starting about now, I guess. Jerry, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, are we going to go to the individuals?
Yes. Yes.
So let's start with whatever the first one is.
Okay.
So Lewis, one of the questions I had with this one was the scenery, the background, all of what were you trying to accomplish with this one?
Lewis, you're muted. You might want to unmute yourself.
I still don't hear Lewis.
Still don't hear you. Tap your space bar.
And hold it.
Yeah, you have to actually hold the space bar down.
No, still not hearing you, Lewis.
Yeah, Lewis's mic is unmuted, but we can't seem to hear him.
Okay. Well, let me give you some observations about this first one. One of the things that, since I can't hear, what your background is and what you were trying to accomplish, on the screen as I viewed it, one of the things that I would probably recommend with this is to try to take the entire background, the black background, and take it to a solid black. And rather than what appears to be more of a gray tone, almost to make it a strong black and white, because it's a great graphic. You're seeing a lot of twists and turns and all of that. That would be a recommendation that I would make with this particular image. But I would still like to be able to hear Lewis and what he was trying to accomplish with this.
Jerry, Lewis basically did in the chat, he said he was trying to accomplish an abstract of the woods in the back of the house.
Okay.
The background is blue on his screen.
Yeah, and it was when I looked at it as well, and I tried to rearrange it and make it an absolute stark contrast. And I don't know if you are familiar with in Lightroom, the mask that is that helps with the how do I say it? It is a masking tool that you find down in the
Details.
Well, in the details, but you find it down more specifically in the, oh golly, should have written that down. It's in the place where you control noise, and you control sharpening. So in the noise and sharpening area, there's a mask that you can put down the Alt key, press the Alt key and move that mask, and it sharpens up an image like this very easily. And when you turn it to a real true black and white, I think you have an excellent image. So let's go to the next one.
All right, sorry.
Yeah, Lewis affirmed.
Yeah, and this this one is just fantastic, and I'm trying to think of anything that I could say that would be constructive. Again, this looks like it would be an excellent high key kind of image that if you did a canvas print of this, and I would recommend a large one, the largest one that you could afford to do. It's just a beautiful image. What, again, I'll try to look in the chat if Lewis says something in the chat.
He said it was an exercise in high key image attempt.
Yeah. The only thing that that I would suggest that maybe you would want to change is the pinkish tone that you have in that lower left-hand corner. And at least the pinkish tone is what I see on the monitor. It may not be there, but I would keep that as much as the white and the gray that you can.
Well, he created this in layers in Photoshop, so he has that control.
Okay. Yeah, that's the only thing that I would even recommend as a change for that one. Beautiful, beautiful image.
Jerry, you want to go to the next one?
Yes, let's go to the next one. This one is like, I saw the title was Wormhole. Have you considered the annual Joseph Miller Abstract Photography exhibit? It's held every year. He's in the Northern Virginia camera group. It's the one that used to do all of the presentations at the annual Nature Visions was the group. But he has separately a whole abstract competition that he holds every year. And he gets people from all over the world in this competition. And they jury down to about 200 images. And out of those 200 images, there will be best of show, which is voted on by the individual participants in the abstract. And then the other thing is they give typically 12 special awards, special recognitions, and those are ones that Joe Miller does himself. I have participated in this one before, and I have gotten this special recognition, which I thought was wow. So if you're into abstracts, it might be something that you consider for the future. And if you go to the Joe Miller Abstract Photography, you will find the winners for 2021, and it's quite interesting to look at them. The other thing I would say, for those of you who are just looking, there's only two abstracts that really happen with the Joe Miller thing. what he considers those which are found and those which are created. And obviously this is a created one. And it has to be in camera. At least the photo has to be something that you took in camera, or else it's disqualified. But I love the colors and everything else. Again, I don't know if Lewis has responded with something.
I did put the link up in the notes.
Ah,
Okay,
Okay, that'd be great.
all right.
The Joe Miller Abstract Photography, and again, they get people from all over the world.
Yeah, it's actually the Nature Visions note from last year, but you can navigate from there too.
Okay. Nice subtle colors and everything else. Next one. This was, again, not being able to communicate directly with Lewis, and it's like the background, of course, being out of focus, the soft lighting and everything else, but the sharp image of the bird. My only suggestions with the cardinal is that maybe in the future, depending on what you're doing, what you're looking for, being able to get the entire bird tail in there, whether or not you get the berries and make them a little bit more standing out. And the question I had for Lewis was whether or not this is something that he has an album of birds. Is he a bird watcher? Is he, is this a task that you continually do? It's really sharp. I like the eyes and the feathering and everything else that's going on. So you've done an excellent job. I just wish I could, again, hear response back as to what your purpose was and what you were thinking about.
Lewis noted that he shoots a lot of birds.
Okay.
He shoots a lot of birds, a lot of flowers, and they usually have very crisp, clean images. The flower that the high key is not unusual for the kinds of things he does. Just outstanding, beautiful work. But don't see too many, Lewis, I don't think I remember seeing too many rusty old engines or rusty old cars from you. It's mostly been natural work. Am I correct?
He affirms, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Well, look, we've got about 3 minutes. If any of the other photographers want to comment about Lewis's images or any of Jerry's comments, now's the time. Okay.
Yeah, that shallow depth of field that you have on the bird, and it's perfectly lined up with that blue sky in the background. And I imagine those green spots are leaves that are, you know, in the tree. So you've highlighted it at the bird's head, just at a perfect spot.
Well, Lewis appreciates all your comments.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
The bird was shot at 800 millimeters and handheld.
Okay. Got a steady hand, Lewis.
All right. We're going to, if we don't, do we have any other comments? You're getting into feed, Mike, are we ready to move on?
Nope, was basically been one-on-one so far.
Okay. Well, let's see. Fred, are you hooked up and ready to go?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
All right.
great.
Let's take a look at Fred's pictures. This is what he brought in.
Nice collection. I think every one of them has a story. I'm sure. As we go through, we'll start with the first one, whatever pops up there first. I was hoping that you could tell me if you were in the gondola of that balloon.
No, I was in a car in Germany. My wife was driving, and I told my granddaughter to hand me my camera, and I just took a shot.
Okay. Did you realize that the train was coming?
No, I took a, I had that thing on I had it on rock and roll. I just let it go.
Okay. Because it was like, you have the slowest transportation probably in the world, using no visible energy other than the gas that the hot air that ignites the balloon. And then you have this complementary colors going in the background of this train just whizzing by, probably doing 200 miles an hour or so.
I don't know how fast it was going.
Yeah, that was it was like, at first I didn't see the train, but then I said, well, your eye views all over it. I mean, you've got complementary colors all over the place. It may not be the kind of image that you're going to hang on the wall someplace, but it's.
Well, I do hang it on the wall in the bathroom. Because I entered in a contest with photos. Okay, so I figured, it's sitting there. There's no sense of sitting in a drawer, so I got an old frame and put it together and put it in the bathroom downstairs over top of the toilet. So that
well, as soon as you said that, I hope I don't offend anybody. I won't be crude, but it's like, okay, so it's the whiz of the train going by.
Yeah, I thought so too.
But it's just kind of interesting that there's the story in there. So let's go to the next one. It's like, so did you congregate at Conowingo Dam to get?
Yes, that was the second time I went up there, and it was the sun. I was kind of late because the sun was just coming up, and I just set the camera in there, and again I had it on rock and roll, and I got a whole bunch of pictures of this guy, and this is one of the last ones I took that I liked, that the sun was coming up.
Yeah, I could tell that the sun was a factor, sunrise or sunset factor. It's like one of the observations, and I'm on plenty of other sites that are people who are nature photographers primarily, and even I have an eagle image, that I liked, and I think everybody needs to have an eagle image in their portfolio somewhere. It's just the experience of being able to say, hey, it's a national symbol, and here it is. It's a hunter. The wings are well defined, and you get that eye just as sharp as could be. And he looks like he's, from the position of his tail feathers, he's probably trying to move on.
He was definitely moving on, because there was other ones there, and if those eagles hang around very long, somebody will try to rip them off.
Oh yeah,
some other bird.
Yeah, I live in Harford County, so I cross Conowingo Dam probably more frequently than most of you, but and oddly enough, the eagle print that I have, that I took, was not at the dam, but a farm that is along the Susquehanna River. And it was a nesting shot. So it's like they're all over. When they were endangered, now they're, you know, almost everybody's getting a, you know, an eagle shot. The one thing that, you know, I see a lot of in the eagle shots, if you backed up the cropping just a bit and put it closer to his tail, if I go and annotate this way and say, you know, crop it like this, it will appear that he's going a lot more, he has a lot more space ahead of him than he has behind him. That's always an interesting thing anytime you have an animal shot, that you try to lead and let the animal, whatever it is, get enough room in front. And it's hard when you're shooting for, you know, center mass of the animal that you're tracking.
Well, that particular shot, I got plenty of room on either side because it's real loose. I cut that in. I mean,
Okay.
I cropped in quite a bit on that sucker.
Well, then I would suggest to you to just crop a little bit more off the back and give him a little more front.
No problem. That sounds like, you know, I just, the thing it's happened to me several times. It's just sometimes I'll be too close to the back. Okay. I did one of a car and I was too close to the back. And then what I had to do is stretch it a little bit, but I agree with you. I mean, you know, let's see what happens. Cause I think I probably put it in 1/3 and that's probably on the 1/3 line.
Okay.
But, you know, the fish and stuff, and that's how I cropped it, but I could crop it. You know, like I said, the picture's huge.
Yeah. Sometimes even an image like this, if you free crop it, and you get a better sense of what your image is trying to say to whoever is looking at it. I know it's more difficult to frame it once you free crop it, but once you play around with free cropping, you get an idea that you can come closer with all the choices that you have in ratios. I know especially in Lightroom, and you can get close to what would be a fairly good crop.
Well, I framed that particular one, but I only did it by 5x8. Okay. Or when it 5x7, and I put 3 of them together. And that was just the last one that came out. The ones before it, he was getting the fish out of the water. And then the one before that, he was just about ready to get it. And I have it framed, but I have it in a threesome, and they're 5x7s.
I saw somebody that just did an eagle composite from Conowingo, where they actually have 6 images that they put together in a composite that gets the full range of, you know, the dive, the grab, and the taking off.
Yeah, I seen that. That's pretty neat. But
Yeah,
what I did with mine is I ended up just taking 3 pics.
Mhm.
Matter of fact, it's on my wall. Let me grab it. Ugh. You see that?
I do.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I ended up with, and that's the last one. But that's, you know, but the thing is, I probably got my camera's shooting at 10 frames a second, so that thing was on rock and roll pretty good.
So what are you shooting with?
I shot down with a Sony 6400 with a 200 to 600 lens on it, so it makes it 900.
Yes. So you got really close, and
Yeah.
again the sharpness of the eye and the beak, and it's just really very good.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Let's go to the next one. This was I just finished doing a wedding this past weekend, and I am an eye guy. If you don't have the eyes sharp, it's like you just need to do something else. But this is absolutely fantastic.
Well, thank you.
The eye is just, Rhonda had sent me the images beforehand, and I was able to blow this up and be able to see how sharp this was. Now, is that her natural color?
Yeah, yeah. What this was done was, of course, it was done in studio, but I was messing around with my 85 and I set it at 2.2, and I had to take the studio light and turn it way down, way down.
Yeah.
And so I was able to get that short depth of field with it. And when you get that short depth of field, it just makes everything look real sharp.
Yeah.
So it's actually cheating, you know, actually cheating. And then I was using a full frame Sony that has eye detection on it, and just kicked the front, and she's straight across. So that thing, it's a Sony, it's an older one. So it only hangs on to the eye for just a brief second. And as soon as it latches onto it, bingo. But she's straight across, that's why. And then also it's got I got a reflector underneath her. You see the eye? You see on the eyes?
Oh, I do. I do. I saw that little crescent.
Right. It's a eye. They call it an eyeliner, but it's not the expensive one. It's the one you buy for 75, 80 bucks.
Right. Yeah, it's just really, really nice.
Thank you.
One of the suggestions that I would have for this one, I don't know if this is a square crop. Did you do a square crop?
I don't remember, because I did that in October. Or no, yeah, when did I do that? No, I did that in June or somewhere. It was, I forgot. It's been a while.
Yeah, part of me, because this face is just fantastic. I would cut down, because you would wind up enlarging her face by some crop like that. Make sure you keep the buttons in.
Yeah, I have like I say, it's a big picture. I cropped a whole bunch on that one. Okay. And so, you know, it's 85 millimeter on a full frame. So I was pretty close, and, you know, 85 millimeters are, when you're shooting something like that, that's it.
Yeah, because when you look at the framing that, or the cropping that you have all this stuff over here. I'm sorry, my mouse gets away from me. But you have all this other stuff over here that is not necessarily contributing to the image.
You're absolutely right, because the whole thing is her hair and her face. You're absolutely right. You know, I just kind of left it because I like the background being blurry like that, and actually saying that black background was not books. It was a mural, like it was a picture of some books, and so I wanted to get it out of focus. But and I wanted to show more of that book frame. But you're absolutely right. A square crop would work perfect with it. Matter of fact, I think with a square crop, you bring it down and bring her head, cut it at the top, and take some of her head out. And I've done that before, and that's one way to do it. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah, but it's a great image. Hopefully, you're married to her, right?
No, well. I've only been married to my wife for 38 years, so it's kind of, I don't think she's even close to, she might be 38, I don't know.
I've been married to my wife for 58 years, so it's like, and I did not mean that as a disparaging remark against your wife. It's just,
yeah, I understand.
This is just a beautiful image, beautiful model. So
Thank you so much.
Let's go to the next one. I don't know about you guys, but I am plagued by squirrels. I have a lot of trees around, and I had to cut down some hickory trees, and it looks like this is a squirrel. And I'm saying, hooray for the hawk, hooray for the hawk. He's got dinner and he took care of a squirrel. Again, absolutely sharp. The feathers are in the front. So where was this?
I took that at Fort Meade on Thanksgiving Day, and I shot it with a 200 to 600 Sony on a 6400 crop sensor, and I was on a with a gimbal and a tripod, but I wasn't actually looking for that. I was shooting a blue herring, and I told some people to go scare this blue herring where I could take a picture of it flying. Then out of the corner of my eye, I seen something fly by me, and I said, "What the heck was that?" Because it was dragging something, and I walked around, and there he was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I took a few. I was able to take about 25, 30 shots. I walked away from it because he was just sitting. I was pretty far away from it, considering, and he was up in the tree. But it was kind of a, again, lucky shot just there.
Well,
And I think I was in shutter priority when I did it too.
the other thing that you mentioned, you use a gimbal. It's like I don't have one. I've never purchased one. What can you tell us about using a gimbal?
Well, with a gimbal, it's real smooth. Okay,
Mhm.
when you go from side to side, it's smooth. If you're going to do a pan shot with it, again, you can put the stabilization in on 2 on that particular lens, then it does sideways. So when you move with it, it stays pretty well sharp. But this guy was just sitting in the tree. It wasn't, he was like, "Take my picture,"
Right. So
and I was far enough away.
was it a squirrel?
Oh yeah, it was a squirrel.
Nice set of images. I'm really really like the portrait of the woman, and all the rest of them are nice as well. Ron warned me. He says you're not going to get somebody who's just took a snapshot. You're going to get people who know what they're doing. And it may be difficult to talk about anything that you would change. I mean, even looking at this image, if you just see the posture of the hawk right here, and then you see the posture of this pine, you may not have intended that, but it helps support the composition simply because you've got this slant that's going on here. And contributes to the position.
Oh, thank you. It's I usually shoot in a studio, okay, and with all this COVID stuff going on, I've been outside mostly. But I think this year I only shot maybe 3 or 4 times in a studio. But I really enjoy working with my own lights: 1 light, 2 light, 3 light, 5 lights. That's what I like doing. And
Okay.
I'm just I'm learning about wildlife. I'm kind of tend to go to that now. Maybe stick with it.
So are you a manual shooter, or do you go aperture priority, or
It just depends. Most of the time, like in a studio, you got to be manual. Okay.
Right.
Like when I'm outside and I'm shooting a bird or whatever, I'll be in shutter priority sometimes. Okay, and then sometimes I'm just the full manual because I know that I need to be at 1/25 or 3200 or 2000. Okay, so there's no sense of messing around. So you just put it on 25 or whatever it is. Put your automatic on the ISO. Okay, and then let the aperture on the camera is going to go down to 6.3 with that big lens, and just set it on rock and roll and try to hang on. They come in and just hang on. You're not going to get them all. Okay.
Yeah, no, you're not going to get them all. I mean, I took this wedding and I had over 600 shots, and it was interesting. Sometimes you just need to shoot fast.
Oh yeah, you're gonna get some losers. I share them.
Jerry, I'm going to jump in here a little bit. I think Fred already took a few of the minutes that Lewis wasn't able to use. And so why don't
I'm
we go
sorry.
ahead and move on to the next one? And Fred, I'm a little worried about your head getting too full of your ego and so on. So just we'll move on to somebody else so it doesn't get worse.
Fred, good job.
Thank you very much.
This is Jackie COLESTOCK. All right. And Jackie, I saw you there earlier. Are you still here with us?
I'm still here.
Okay.
Okay, yes, I see Jackie now. Okay,
Jerry, she's all yours. There we go.
okay. This was another kind of graphic, if you will. Tell us where this was.
This is Conowingo, and this was actually taken from the back seat of a motorcycle.
Excellent, excellent.
I have a system to hook up so that my cell phone does not make a trip that I'm not making when we're on the motorcycle. And I shot it over my husband's shoulder as he was going over the dam.
Okay. Well, it's like I probably guessed that it was Conowingo Dam because again, I've been across there. I graduated from Bel Air High School in 1962. So we used to, when I was in school, we used to take tours through this facility when it was really a hydroelectric plant. And they would allow you to actually walk through all of the stuff. So now that I know that it was taken at the back of on the back seat of a motorcycle, it's like because the only thing that I was going to comment about is that you have about a third of your image with that block building. It's actually cement building. And it's like, I don't know if you have a larger image of this, but I would kind of take out some of that gray block concrete building to emphasize again the fact of the abstract nature of all of the power grid and all of this stuff that's up here, and eliminate some of this stuff that's over here, especially this right over here. It could be a distraction. It also could be simply a context of, well, this is the side of a building and that's an imprint of some kind. You just don't know. There's not a lot of information here other than the abstractness of it. But I love the fact that you took it on the back of your husband's motorcycle. I was sitting, one of my favorite abstract pictures that I have that I've used in a demonstration before. I was sitting in the back seat of my daughter-in-law's car, and we were in Arizona, and we were getting ready to go over rolling hills, drive, a road.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it on a slower shutter speed and actually wound up with an abstract that looked like, because you got the center lines, you got a yellow line, you got a white line, you got almost like an impressionistic view of going across the road. But the point is, don't leave your camera around places that you can't reach them. I told my students at Hartford Community College, I said, the best camera you have is the one you have with you. It's not the one that you have in the box or, in your briefcase or your camera bag. You just need to have that image acclimator on you at all times.
Yeah, and this one, I knew I wanted something on the bridge. I wasn't sure what I would get. And so as he approached the bridge, I set up behind him with the camera because I knew he would not stop.
Well, it's not a very good place to stop.
No.
And actually, the place where you are right now, where that building is the most narrow place of going over the Conowingo Dam.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you don't want to meet a tractor trailer coming the other way.
Now, when we stopped for a brief down the road, he said, "What were you doing behind me?" And I said, "Oh, I'm taking pictures."
I was in Indonesia, and a person we were visiting, she was principal of a school there, and she said, "Well, do you want to take a tour around Salatiga and on the back of my motorcycle?" And it was more like a dirt bike than it was a motorcycle. And I said, "Sure, I'd be happy to." But it's like, I took my camera.
Mm-hmm.
Always take a camera. Okay, let's move to the next. This one, the first question is, where were you? What were you doing?
This was taken when my first grandson was christened at the St. Alphonsus National Shrine. This is in Baltimore.
Okay.
And this is in the side chapel to the main sanctuary. It was dark,
Mm-hmm.
but I have darkened the room more. I was after the light coming through the window. And what was interesting was the light coming in the window was very indirect. So there were no sunbeams hitting the pews in front of the window.
So if you would have stood in front of the window and been, perpendicular to it, you would have gotten bad light?
It would have been kind of flat. It was also an area that was off limits.
Oh, okay.
So that wasn't really an option.
Mm-hmm.
I could see, but couldn't get to.
One of the things that I like to do, and it's not everybody's taste, I mean, you've got the darkness out there, but you have a little bit of light that's shining on the pew and a railing. And I would probably very lightly, lift those highlights. If you're working in Lightroom, for example, just move the highlight shutter, or use the adjustment brush, and just go ahead and brush that area and just do the highlight, because otherwise you might get too much highlight coming off of the entire window. But I would open it up a little bit. I have a shot similar to this that I took in England, and that's one of the things I did with it, because I like the dark. I think it's wonderful. And it just pops those colors right out. But just a very small light touch on those highlighted pews would give you another sense of context of where you are.
Okay.
That's for me. Let's go to the next one. Now, this is one of those, is this you at the ocean?
No, this is not me. This is at Bradenton Beach in Florida, which is on the Gulf Coast.
Okay.
We have property down there, and I was just going down to see what was going on at the beach and what I could shoot at sunset. And this young girl was looking at shells, and I asked her, I said, "Do you mind if I take your picture?" And she's like, "Oh no, I think that would be great." And I said, "Just go back to doing what you were doing."
Mm-hmm.
And so she did, and I took probably about 6 or 7 shots of her, and liked this one the best because she finally forgot that I was there.
Okay. Did you consider making this a black and white?
No, I hadn't.
Okay. One of the things that I tried it, again, very simply, I didn't put it in Lightroom. I didn't put any of the images in Lightroom that Ron forwarded to me. But I just took the little application that you can do with the Windows program,
Mm-hmm.
And turned it into a black and white. And it actually gave a different whole outline to that individual. And you can and you see more of her flesh tone. And it's not a flesh tone, of course, it's a gray tone, but I would suggest that you maybe look at this as converting it to a black and white.
Okay, I'll try that, because black and white is something that I like to play with a lot.
Mhm.
And I suppose it was because I saw this one in my head in color that I wasn't intending it to be black and white, but that'll be a good one. I'll take a look at that and see what it does.
Because people are going to look at it and know it's the ocean. They know it's blue and they know it's the other thing. But with it, so instead of taking an adjustment brush and brushing across her body, because she's actually backlit, you know, it would look too fake. But when you convert it to black and white, it really does pop her skin out. And you get a little bit more detail.
I'll try that.
That'd be a suggestion I'd make for you there.
Yeah, I'll try that.
And of course, you know, if you could have told her I see this direction of the sun, and you could have always zoomed down the beach a little bit and said, hey, could you turn this way? And get her to get in the light in a different way. That might have worked for you. But converting it to black and whites might be something that you look at. So it's not a relative, it was just a stranger.
Just a stranger on the beach.
Okay. All right, let's move to the last one. So where's this?
This is the Bates Reading Room in the Boston Public Library. And this was an interesting situation. I was wandering around the library taking pictures, and the old section of the Boston Public Library is a very well-known building. It's actually architecturally very beautiful. It has a lot of different mosaics and different types of art in it. And I had been taking pictures of arches, and I walked into this room and lined up, took the first shot, didn't like it, lined up, took this shot. As I'm checking the shot, that's when I see the sign behind the door that says, no photography. I put the camera away and I left before anybody said anything.
Well, that's a shame. No photography, but you've captured it. And the one thing that, again, using the highlights or the highlights in Lightroom, and I have one cropping suggestion for you, and that would be to crop somewhere along here, because when this arch over here and this arch over here, they bleed out of the frame, and so you wind up going out of the frame and then coming back in the frame in an image like this. But if you see where I have suggested a different kind of crop, it looks like it just flows. It almost looks like this is a 3D effect with cropping this out at the top. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
It's that was because you have here and you have here. I'm not a stickler for perfect. There are other people who are, but if you had these particular columns, let me get to undo that. I don't know if they're exactly straight across, but you might check that. I don't know if you ever, I don't know if people do it. have always tried to just eyeball stuff. And I've learned that the computer, Lightroom, when you're in the crop box itself, there's a little auto switch over there.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if you've ever played with the auto switch.
Not in the crop box, no.
In the crop box, when you're in the crop box, look, and there's on the right-hand side, there's a little auto switch. And if you hit that auto switch and you've got something that's really not straight, the computer will straighten it out for you.
Okay.
Most of the time, it'll straighten it out for you. So it's probably people don't use it as often. They eyeball it just like I do most of the time, but every once in a while, I'll use that automatic function that straightens it out. But then I would lighten up a little bit more of that ceiling. Again, just very lightly. I wouldn't do much more than what you have, but I would lighten it up some more, and do that with an adjustment brush. Don't just lighten up the whole thing, because
Right.
then you're gonna blow out the windows.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, not blowing out the windows has been a real trial with this particular image.
So if you just take the adjustment brush, and what you also can do with that adjustment brush is cut back on the opacity of the adjustment brush. So you're not doing 100% opacity. And that way you can have a little bit of gradient feel for it. And you can always erase it, just delete it and then start over and change the opacity. And I think this will just pop this picture, because you've got some great lights down here, and the mirrors and the people and the windows. It just looks like it's a little bit dark at the top, and I would want to lighten it up a bit.
Okay, that sounds really good.
So Ron, am I
Okay.
out of time? Or?
I think you're about out of time. Jackie, do you have any other questions for Jerry before we move on?
No, this has been very informative. Thank you.
Okay. And Mike Washington, Mike, are there any questions on the chat that we haven't addressed at this point?
No, there isn't. So we're
Okay.
good to go.
Okay. All right. And if so in the spirit of trying to make sure everybody has plenty of time, we might give a little more opportunity for discussion at the end if we have it. But why don't we, for the next one, go to Doug Wood and Jerry. These are the 4 images that Doug has submitted, and Doug has said to me he chose these for particular reasons, so he might want to tell you a little bit about what some of those reasons were, and I'll turn it over to you. We'll go to our first image, I guess.
Okay, I see the top of Doug's head.
See if I can get the webcam to point down a little more. I picked images that were very much in progress. I figured this was a critique. There wasn't any point in giving you ones that I thought were great.
Yeah. And where was this?
This is Machu Picchu.
Okay, that's what I guessed. It's on my bucket list. I haven't made it there yet. But...
And we were one of the first people in, so I caught the morning fog and the emptiness of it, and I was kind of trying to catch that kind of that lonely, ruined atmosphere.
Yeah, I liked you had a title. It was like In the Beginning or something like that, I think, in the title of it.
I don't remember. I'll have to look at what naming these things is always an interesting game.
Yeah. So
sometimes it's the only thing you get to tell a judge. Dawn of Time.
Dawn of Time. Okay. In the beginning, Dawn of Time. It's like I love the stepping kind of feel. It's almost, I know by the size of the tree, these aren't steps. You could not just step down to each level.
No, these are almost a building. Each of those steps is almost a building story.
Right. That's what, if you tried to step down here, you would be falling or breaking a leg or doing something. I like the symmetry of where you've placed, where the tree is and how you've placed it. I don't think I would do anything more with the mound in the background, the fog. I might darken it just a tad, but I don't think I would do anything more with that background. I think you have a great distance up here between here. There's enough space. You could shorten it up maybe a little bit, but I don't know that would affect it that much. In the green parts, all of these green parts, I don't know how you would feel about lightening those up. Maybe, what did your eye see? I mean, was it green? Was it yellow? Was it darker green? What were you?
It was fairly green. It's cultivated grass in there. And I might be able to take the green channel and pull those up.
Yeah, you could. And that's one of the things I would suggest, but again, not too much, because you don't want to bring it so far that you have too much green in there. The other thing that I was looking at was this section right here, which looks a little more tall grass.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I think it's fine. It gives you context, but you may, if you're going for the green steps, let me see if I can do this straight, you might crop it here and get away from the weeds over here. That'd be a choice to do that.
That might work, because I don't know that the bottom right corner is that interesting either.
Yeah, because you see the windows or the holes, and they're up here, so you have them in context up here. You don't really need them down here, and the focal point for most people is going to be this tree, and so getting people to be more focused on the tree would take this, out of here, and you should be fine. My suggestion to you.
Both of those are easy to try, and
Yeah.
I think the cropping will definitely help. We'll see what happens with the grain.
Yeah, it's a nice image, and like I say, it's a place that I'd love to go, just haven't made it on the bucket list yet. I've been
I did the Inca Trail hike in, so 4 days up over the mountain and in.
Yeah, I was in Ecuador for Compassion International, which was pretty, focused. That didn't allow me to go other places that I would like to have gone, but it was it's a nice image. Okay, let's move to the next one. So what was your plan on this one?
This was an architectural and a kind of a cultural character. I was on a cycling trip in Harv, Croatia, And this, these little houses with these beautiful courtyards. So this is the, you know, the visitor coming through into this beautifully garden courtyard and coming up to the doorway.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what does your eye, what's your eye attracted to when you see this image?
It's about the flowers, but the leading lines is kind of taking you through the journey through the flowers to the door.
Okay. Would you consider, because whatever the sunlight is happening or reflections that are happening over here, would you consider taking that yellow down and bringing this yellow up? Because these two are competing, and I'm getting this whole flat surface as being more eye-catching and drawing than the flowers. And if the flowers are your object, I would consider pushing this
So taking the vibrancy down on the around the doorway and pulling or vibrancy or saturation down around the doorway.
correct. That's what I would suggest. Again, it's a nice image, and you've got a lot of colors that are going on, but this color, for whatever reason, and you know, other people may disagree with me, and that's fine, detracts from what I think you're trying to accomplish over here.
Now, I think that's a good suggestion. I've been playing with this image a lot and have not been completely happy with it, which is why I picked this one as one to talk about. And I've been playing with it in Lightroom, and I assume I'm going to have to do what you're suggesting as multiple layers in Photoshop, which I can do. I'm just not quite as proficient at.
Yeah, I'm not a Photoshop person, so anybody doing anything in Photoshop, they're way beyond me. I started with Lightroom 1 before they called it Lightroom 1. I started with Lightroom, and I have been a devotee to Lightroom all the way through, and I jump over into Photoshop every once in a while. The other thing,
I have to see if, yeah, there's some technique I'll have to learn here, but it's a good suggestion.
okay. The other thing that might suggest, just once you take care of this issue, I might crop this out just a bit, because again, the focus is about the flowers, the walkway, you've got the leading line.
And I don't need the blank wall in the top left, correct? You're right.
Yeah. And just another observation that you might just pick up some of the colors in here, not much, but you've got some yellows in here, and you've got the purples. Or
I'm not seeing where in here.
okay, I'm sorry. Let me.
In there. Okay.
Yeah. That might be another thing that you think, not a lot, just a little bit. But because otherwise it looks like it's going into probably a deep, dark place. And it doesn't need to be that dark. Just my opinion.
Okay, Jerry, you want to go on to the next photo?
Sure. Yep. Oh, so Doug, tell me about this one, because I had fun with this one.
This was also the cycling trip in Croatia. I take an awful lot of my photos. My travel and my photography are very synergistic.
Yeah.
So this was just walking the streets, which I love to do. I love to just get out and walk around the streets in a new city and just take shots and see what's there. And
Yeah, I've not been to Croatia, but I have a friend who goes to Croatia all the time. She has relatives that are still there. But I've been to Romania several times, and the culture and some of the buildings and stuff like that are
it was very quaint medieval character.
yes.
We were out in the islands in the Adriatic that really haven't changed much.
So I can describe what I did, but I can't show it to you because I would have to get out of the screen, go into something else, and go back and forth. And Zoom doesn't have that possibility.
Yeah, that's okay.
So the first thing I did with this image was I flipped it vertically. Don't ask me why. I just sensed that it was going to be a different view if I flipped it vertically, which I can't do here.
So that the awning's on the right.
So all of this was over.
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
And
yeah, I can see what that's going to do because I've got the blank wall that's leading off the screen, and when you flip it the other way, the eye scan is going to stop at the at that building instead of going off the screen.
right, and then the other thing I did was I cropped it pretty low. Again, your focal point is all about this. And probably this, and you still get the flavor of all of the old town, the old feeling, and if you were to choose, I think I would even crop out the lamp, but the lamp is nice. It almost gives you a triangle. You got here, you got the lamp, and then you got the hats. You got 3 eye points that you can go to. If you flip it and crop it a bit. That also gives you the highlights on what appear to be on the right side. As you're looking at it, will be on the left side, and it gives it a different look.
Yeah. Yep. I flip stuff a lot. I should have seen that one on this one, but I didn't, and it's a very good suggestion.
Okay. Let me get rid of all of my marks. The other thing. And we all do this. I've done it a million times. It's like when you have a stand like this, try to get the entire stand.
Yeah, yeah, and you can't go back.
No, you can't go back. It's like when you cut off the toes of somebody's feet and you wanted the whole body shot, and then you have to crop it to make it, because you cut off their feet. So
I have another one that I missed a little bit, and I drew in a piece of bench leg.
yeah. Okay, next. My first suggestion, and I'm going to say this before you say anything else. Only for the same reason that I said about that library. Take this out. You don't need, oops, I'm sorry. Let me undo that. You don't need all this. And you still have the frame your cannons and your tunnel effect. Because what's your focal point? What are you looking?
It's the pattern, it's the repetition of the cannons.
Right. It's the repetition of the cannons and the repetition of the arches.
And they are right.
Yeah. And this one is just so big that it's like all this stuff up here. Don't add to the picture. Don't add to the image. So where was this?
This is Fort Sumter,
Fort Sumter. Okay.
a little closer to home.
Yeah. Were you able to get the end of the cannon?
I do have more to the left. I don't have the ends because they're outside
Okay.
of the embouchure, but I do have more.
Okay.
But what I ended up getting was a whole lot of blank wall behind it,
Okay.
which is why I cropped it in the way I did.
And that's what I figured, that probably they were sticking out of a hole someplace.
Yeah,
a slot.
they're sticking out of a hole, so I can't get the whole can. It wasn't there to get.
Yeah. But I would still try to maybe get a little more length in the muzzle of the cannon, because it looks like it's a stubby.
Yeah, I think I have significantly more out there.
Yeah. Because and if you take out what I suggested, for the same reasons I suggested the other one, the other crop, is just like do this, because all of this stuff is not the focal point. The focal point's all of this tunneling effect that you have in the depth of field. And you've done it very, very nicely. It's very sharp. You can see the bricks and the texture and all the, what's the word they use? The patina of aging that happens. So it's a nice image. That would be the suggestions that I make.
But Doug, do you have any other questions for Jerry before we move on? We have two more people, and we're getting toward 8:20, I think, at this point. And as a timekeeper, I didn't do a very good job tonight, so my apologies if I'm pushing it too much.
I think we can move on. I think the suggestions have been very helpful.
It's a little quiet in the chat room too.
Yeah. Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, you chat, folks. You wake up a little bit, okay? All right, Jerry, we're going to go on to JC's 4 pieces, couple of birds and a couple of landscapes. And JC, are you plugged in, ready to go? JC?
Is JC here?
JC, are you muted? All right. Can you hear me, JC?
He is muted. It shows muted.
Okay. All right.
Okay, can you
All
hear
right.
me?
Yep, we're good. Okay.
Okay,
It's-
wait a minute. Let me get back into it because I can't see the, I just did something here.
Okay.
Can't see the screen. What did I do? Side by side, speaker, side by side. Exit full screen. Yeah, I don't see the, what did I do? I don't see the pictures anymore. I only see myself. I don't know what I did. View option, wait a minute. Side by side mode. Okay, now I'm back.
Okay, great, great.
Now, I can't see you. I can only see myself.
Well, if you hit that view thing at the top.
Okay, I have everyone now. Okay.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So where was this?
Okay, that was taken in Alaska back in 2014. I wanted to go to Alaska on a fishing trip. I wanted to go salmon fishing. and made the mistake and asked my wife and daughter to go with me. I didn't, my wife and two daughters. I said, I know I want to go fishing. And at the time I took this, I wasn't really into photography, but I always take a camera with me everywhere I go. So I had my camera with me. And this was we was on our way from Anchorage to where I was going to go fishing to Seawood down, a little bit south down there. It's about a 2-hour drive. And these mountain ranges just amazed me. And I was driving also. And I said, look, y'all, I just have to stop and take one of these pictures here. And I took about 4 or 5 pictures of these mountain ranges here. And I've had these since 2014 and never did anything with them. So when Ron said that, we're going to have a critique, I said, well, maybe someone can tell me how can I lift this image up, because to me it's flat, but I just love the mountain range. I like the fog that was in it and everything, but it just seems flat to me. And I don't know a lot about Photoshop and don't know anything about Lightroom. So, any suggestion would help me.
Well, I'm just going to give you my opinion about the two different things. I mean, Lightroom particularly was designed for photographers. Photoshop was designed for photographers and graphic artists and designers. I mean, in Photoshop, from what I know, and I've seen people who have actually accomplished that, is they can create in Photoshop something that just in their imagination, and you would believe that it was real.
Yeah, I've looked at a lot of videos like that.
Yeah, and it's like, so being a photography person and a lover of Lightroom, I would just suggest Lightroom. There is in Lightroom what's called a dehaze filter. And they didn't have it in the original Lightroom. They only added it probably a couple of years ago. Because when you talk about the flatness of the image, the dehazer actually takes the different levels that you have, the tones that you have here, the closest ones which are darker, and then you go progressively back to the lighter ones. And it takes away that haze electronically, it makes us all better photographers, honestly, at least the outcome, because this is the raw image, and with a little post-processing, you could have this as a standout image that you would hang on your wall. I don't know if I saw that you have somebody coming next meeting as a Lightroom instructor.
Mhm.
So it's like that person, probably if you ask real nicely, are they members of your club, Ron?
No, that's a outside speaker.
Oh, it's an outside speaker. But I'm sure that there are some people in the club that with a little bit of instruction could make this image just pop out. What I also thought was interesting about this image is if you just take the lower half of this image there, and I'm not saying you should do this, there was an image that incorporated a foreground, a river, and it appeared to be a beach, and then just a little bit like this. So if you really cut it about right here. Now, again, I'm not recommending this. I'm just telling you about an image that I saw.
Mhm.
And it was done full frame. So it was like, if I can do it like this. This was the image.
Okay.
The thing sold for over $1 million. It was in Sweden. And I'm going to say it, I'm going to say it my way. Some idiot paid $1 million for it. But it had this, the grass, the river, the, the beach, and then, and I guess it made a great graphic, for the person that, I wish I could remember the title of it. But if you look at photographs that have sold for over $500,000, you will find that image.
Okay, thank you. I'll check it out.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna see, can I get some, can I, when I learn a little bit more about Lightroom, so I get someone to work on it for me. At least I like to learn how to work on it myself, first of all.
Sure, absolutely. And once you learn it, you'll become addicted.
Okay.
You will. I'm sure that Ron could tell you, and others who have worked in Lightroom as a habit or a behavior, that they could spend an hour or two on an image to make it exactly what you saw. Because even though this image is a good image, you saw a million more colors than what's in this image.
Oh my God, yes, this thing was like so beautiful,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's move to the next one.
Okay. Now, this image right here, I'm quite sure you all know where this is. This is I'm trying to open it up myself so I can see it, okay. Okay, I have it. Everyone should know where that is right there. That was taken from, I was standing on the World War II memorial when I took that picture, and I took it at night. And I think I was using I don't know whether I was using my 500 or my 250 with the extender on it. But I didn't want the standard picture of the Capitol, wanted something different. So, there's the Navy yard down there, the Navy base down at the bottom down there. So I just decided to play around with it. And when I got it to the house, it was just like, oh my God, this is horrible. So what can I do to it? So I started playing around with it. And I do play around with what do you call it? Camera Raw a little bit. So I started playing with it in Camera Raw and just start switching it up, and kind of like this. So I said, let me put this in and see what kind of suggestions I get. I mean, I never entered this in a contest or anything like that, but it's it's different to me,
Well, you just informed me that you use Camera Raw.
That's the only thing. That's the only thing I do a little bit with is Camera Raw. I was telling my buddy Fred, I just learned a little bit about layers the other day, about 3 days ago, layers and hashes. I learned a little bit about that about 3 days ago. I was just telling Fred about it.
Well, the Camera Raw by itself is almost identical to Lightroom. When all the features that you have in Camera Raw, you can do for the most part in Lightroom. There are some things that are different, but if you have Camera Raw, you can play around with a lot of different brushes and pieces to change the image. And I would be, I don't know for sure because I don't play with Camera Raw. I have it, but yeah. I bet I could find a dehaze brush in there.
Yeah, it is one in there. I never used it, and I just never, I've seen it in there, but basically when I go into Camera Raw, I bring it in Camera Raw, bring up my highlights, bring up my shadows and decrease my highlights, give it a little bit of exposure, maybe give it some texture, and that's about all I do to it.
Okay.
Try to brighten it up a little bit. And this one, I played around with, switching it from one color to the other one.
Well, of course, when you look at this dark up here and you just kind of expand it out and look at it very detailed, there's a lot of noise simply because
right.
You have a very dark composition. So one of the things that I would suggest is, again, going in with a brush and just make this black. Make it black.
Okay, good idea.
And I
great idea.
And I would, because your focal point is all about is all about this.
Right.
And somewhere down here, you know, I would crop it and get rid of all of this,
Mm-hmm.
you know, stuff. Because this is your real focal point, and you might use a square crop, the 1-to-1, and place it in here, and,
Very good.
leave the coloring in here, but make the rest
Okay.
rest of it black.
Just make the background completely black. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you very much. Good idea.
and I think that would
Mhm.
achieve what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
with
I
the-
see it right off. I see it right off the bat. Right.
Okay, let me get all my marks off of here. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Okay. This one was taken back in February of this year. It was taken from my sunroom, out those trees in the back. I was sitting in the sunroom, and these cardinals kept coming to the tree and lightning in there. You know, they not, let me say, you know, during they perch in the tree and leaving. And I kept looking at them, and I said, wow, this would make a good postcard, it'd make a good Christmas card. So I went to get my camera, and I thought they would leave, but they kept coming back, and I finally had this one to sit there for a while. And I just shot through the window, and then when I got it, I wanted to make sure that, you know, I know a lot of people wants to blur everything in the background, but I didn't want to blur that whole background out. I wanted the bird to be sharp, but I didn't want the background to be completely blurred out, because I wanted to show the greens and the red like a Christmas card or a postcard, a Christmas card. And that was my whole intent on that one right there.
Okay. It's like you have the essential ingredient every bird photographer requires, and that is you have a catch light in his eye, and it's female, so you've got catch light in her eye, which is fine. And you've got that distance that I was talking about earlier in that eagle shot. You've got a nice distance between, you know, the bird and what's obviously the bird's looking out here someplace, looking for other birds or whatever. Now, it's interesting that you said you didn't want to blur out any of the background. There is a radial filter in Lightroom that you could essentially the radial filter, you can place it over the bird. Again, if I were in Lightroom, I would be able to show you. And it will make an elliptical like this. And there's feathering that occurs in that elliptical as well. And you can adjust the feathering in and out. And what you could do to make this bird just pop out is, without getting rid of all of the green, is lowering the saturation, because whatever's in here, in the elliptical filter, whatever's in here is not going to change. You're affecting everything out here. And that's a Lightroom thing that may be in Camera Raw. I don't know if they have it in there or not.
Yeah, I don't know.
So that would be a way of decreasing the coloration, the saturation out here to make the cardinal pop out even more, because you're really sharp with this. I mean, you just see these feathers, it's really nice. So being able to change this background, I believe would help this image, not turning it completely blurry, but just turning down the saturation a bit. Now, another thing in that elliptical filter, if those of you who are familiar with that in Lightroom, and if JC is not familiar with it, it's like you can switch it and everything that is inside is affected by how you change, and all the stuff outside remains the same.
Yeah, I've never used it before.
Okay, so just another idea to look at.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Jerry, our last image from JC.
Yep.
Okay, this was shot kind of like recently here, about when, last month or not before last one. I was doing some photography down in Virginia for a lady, and they had told me about Huntley Meadows. I've never been to Huntley Meadows before, and they was telling me about there was some spoonbills over there. So one Saturday I got up and said, I'm going to go down to Huntley Meadows, and I went down there, and I was the spoonbills was there, so I was photographing the spoonbills. I got some pretty good shots of them, and all of a sudden I had my camera all set up like I was only like at shutter speed only like 600, and I think like 640, and I wasn't zoomed all the way in, and all of a sudden these egrets started flying, and I just flipped around, and because I wanted to catch them really flying. I thought I was going to catch, like you catch the two egrets playing in the air, fighting in the air. I thought I was going to catch them doing that, but this one decided he wanted to go and land. So I just followed him, and I just started clicking on him. And then when I got it, the one I picked out is where he was about to perch on this limb here. But I had to crop it in I had to do a lot of cropping on it because they was a long ways out there. And I have a little program here that you can do a vignette in, and I took that program and put a little slight dark vignette around it so I could focus more on the bird there.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't do a thing with the image. You're not going to be able to change the fact that he has a feather in his eye. It would have been nice, but you can't go back and change that. There's nothing you can do about that. But the eye is absolutely sharp. You've got the whole forward motion. You've got this V going on here. You've got this supporting it. It's all of this. You've got the round of his landing. It's all just a great shot. It's a great composition. Again, for me, if you had a little bit more in the front, it might give you a sense of depth, but if you don't, I wouldn't touch it. It's very nice. Feathers are sharp. Everything is sharp. You did a good job.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate all the comments, and I'm going back and work on that Alaska picture for sure. And for the Capitol picture, I don't think I want to do anything. I think I'm just going to let that one go. Okay, but I do want to work on the cardinal. I do want that cardinal to pop a little bit more, and I do want to work on that landscape in Alaska though.
Yeah, good. Those two images are images that, like you said, one would make a great postcard, and the other one hang on the wall.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jerry, very much. And by the way, I did look at your website, and you have some gorgeous pictures on your website.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, the image behind me is the Garden of Gethsemane in Israel. And I made it painterly on purpose because I wanted the emotional feel of just to let you know.
Yeah, beautiful. Do any of our other photographers, before we get to Rich, we have just about a minute for any other questions?
Yeah, I did want to ask the what's the name? What's her name?
Jerry.
The treasure. What's her name? I can't remember.
Jackie.
Jackie.
Jackie, yeah. Jackie, I did want to ask you, did you use cell phone for all your pictures? I know you use cell phone a lot.
No, actually, I usually use a Canon 7D.
Okay.
And the only one on the cell phone was the motorcycle shot. The Canon's a
Okay.
little heavy to maneuver around a couple of helmets at 60 miles an
Right.
hour.
No, I was just thinking, because I know in the club, I think you've shown some great pictures that you had taken with your cell phone.
I used what I got with me.
Amen.
Okay.
It's like my first digital camera was a 3-megapixel Olympus point and shoot that I took to England. Cost almost $800. And I thought, oh my goodness. And then of course I've expanded beyond that.
Yeah.
And now cell phones are taking, 24
Mm-hmm.
megapixels or whatever.
Okay, our last photographer of the evening is Rich Stolarski, and Rich has been back and forth with me on a couple of these images. He's taken a lot of care, picking out some things to talk about. Jerry, I'm going to
Okay.
move to our
Hi,
first
Jerry.
image here. And Rich, are you on? And
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I
We're
hear you.
good. All right.
This was taken, and this is sort of an accident picture. I was in Bath, England, and I just the light shining on the side of this building caught my fancy. When I started looking at it again, I just liked the chimneys on the top of the building, the two sets of them, the shadows, and then noticed the shadows from the building you can't see. And so I just wondered what you thought of this kind of accidental picture.
Well, first of all, I have been to Bath, England. My wife and I did our 50th wedding anniversary in England. And so I thought that this was probably an English shot, because the first thing that you see in places like Bath and others, did you go to the Roman bath while you were there?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay, great.
We went there. I've got lots of pictures of that, but this
Yeah.
was just something that was different.
Yeah. Yeah, we stayed in a monastery. They had a bed and breakfast at a monastery, a working monastery.
Oh, we were staying in Salisbury and drove up to Bath.
But I love the texture and the tone, the separation of this, right in here. You caught that nicely. The reflections, they're far enough away that they're fuzzy, but it's still that reflection. The other thing I thought of was what chim chim chiree, chim chim chira, and
Yeah,
that the chimney sweep song.
yes.
And when we were there in several different places like that, you would see these big chimney. I don't even know what they call them. But there was one thing that I would look at, and when I mentioned the automatic straightening in Lightroom, this looks like this line right here is just leaning slightly to the right. And I think it's being repeated here. And I don't think it's the building that's out.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It just barely.
Yeah, it's just barely.
I can use the automatic, or even if I don't use the automatic, I use Camera Raw, but you can just use the rotate function too, and it puts the lines up there, and you can pick the line that you want.
Correct. Yeah.
To do it. The automatic might straighten out might go and straighten it out on the right side where the horizontal is down. It might straighten that out by accident.
Yes, and that's the thing that you always have to go back and eyeball
Right.
it to your own specifications. But this one is the one that caught my eye, and it's just slight, but it's
Yep.
it might be worth the change.
I have a lot of trouble with getting things flat. I have to use the tools since my cataract surgery, everything is tilted.
I've had the cataract surgery. I'm right there with you.
Yes.
I had mine about, what, 10 or 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And
I play a lot of golf, and the greens are always tilted now. It's embarrassing. Anyway,
another
any-
thing,
yeah.
another thing that, and it doesn't look like there's probably any cloudiness in the sky.
That's right.
But if you brushed this and lowered the exposure just a little bit to see if there's anything, if there isn't anything, don't worry about it. But if there's just a little texture in the sky, it usually makes the sky a little more interesting.
Yeah, I've found that the dehaze tool on really plain skies messes it up.
Yeah, I wouldn't use the dehaze on a sky.
I use it on some that have structure to kind of deepen the blues, but on something like this, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, it's just like you would take the adjustment brush and what I would do, the way I do it is I would make this image really, really small in Lightroom, and then make a really big, a really big circle, and just punch right here on this, and you can see pretty quickly whether or not there's any definition or difference in that sky.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how to do it, but I know what you're trying to get at.
Yeah.
I do it in Camera Raw. I don't use Lightroom, and I won't use Lightroom. So
okay, but even in Camera Raw, I think
it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing. But what you can do is make the image, the ratio image, or the visual image, just make it really, really smaller, and then put that circle around the entire small image, and just punch the color that you want. You with me?
Sort of.
Okay. And that way it will, because it's not going to affect any of the other stuff, because you don't have that color. You have the target color. But it's one way of doing it quick and easy, and you don't have to mess around trying to get it all, perfect within the chimneys.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to the next one.
This is in Athens, Greece. It's the Museum of the Agora.
Okay.
Agora. This is meant to be for, we have an architecture theme coming up, and what I liked was the simplicity and the fact that these Doric columns, that there were so many of them in such a short space. I don't know. I'm curious as to the reaction to this very simple composition.
So here's one of the things that I could suggest for you, whether or not you'll be able to do it. I'm sure you can be able to do it. But if you made this the corner, the upper corner, and you made this the bottom corner, then you have this column solidly sitting on this edge, and all the rest is simply the repeat of that. By getting rid of this space here and this space up here. That way you've got that column in this corner, and you've got the base in this corner.
Yeah, I made that sort of outline above the columns come out of the corner, but you're basically saying bring that corner down so
Correct.
that, yeah.
Correct.
I might not bring it down quite that. I might keep just the top of the column another
Yeah,
smidgen up.
Yeah, my mouse and control is not perfect, so
Yeah.
but
Simplify even more, because I'm trying to emphasize the triangles there and then just the
Right.
row of columns. And there were more columns to the left, but I cropped that out because they had space between them with distracting elements behind it.
yeah, because I'm seeing this now as you said it. This would continue, and that would serve the same purpose.
Yeah.
To get that column in there.
Right there.
Right. So the other suggestion that I thought of when I looked at this is the reflections that are down here in the floor. Now, they're not strong, very strong here, but what reflections you have might be enhanced. And I wasn't able to play with this one, but if you could enhance the reflection, I think it would give you some more texture in what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I didn't play with that. I noticed that dark spot, and I'm thinking that it had to do with the light coming in.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Not being as good in that particular place, but I may be able to bring something out there by working on that area.
But you can see the reflections right here, and they're pretty good. Even if you weren't able to pull them further, just this because this is your foundation, and and that reflection would help build this whole structure.
Okay.
As a suggestion.
Yeah.
Another thing that and I'm torn between for this suggestion whether or not you lighten some of this up just barely, you know. I'm trying to draw a straight line and just barely so that you get this sense of you've got directionality going this way, you've got directionality going this way, you've got the reflections that are going here if you're able to pull them out, and now you've got, you know, just a lot of geometric and again subtle, just really subtle up here.
Is it bothering that the tops of those in the ceiling are at a little bit of an angle?
You would have to play with it to see whether or not it really bothered you that much and bothered the image, because again, your strong focal point is all right here.
Yeah. The fact that they're dark, I didn't worry too much about it. As I lighten them up, I might worry more.
Well, and again, it's like when you're looking at a graphic image like this, and you have essentially all of this image that doesn't say anything, you know, it's like, let me just undo that one. But you get the point. If you get this much of your image that's not saying anything, it's uninteresting, and all of it's down here, maybe you can pull up just a little bit of light into here. So
okay,
that's
I get that point.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Oh, now there's this one. We had a competition several years ago on triptychs. The judge didn't like one picture cut into three. But what I was trying to do here, this is Lake Moraine in near Banff. And I was trying to add a three-dimensional depth to this picture. So I made the center portion, which was farther away, smaller. And then I took and actually distorted both sides as they came closer to you. And I was trying to imagine that I was sitting in a boat out in that lake, which I wasn't, looking out some picture windows.
Yep.
And I didn't get any feedback on that because no, it's, it's not a real triptych. It's just one picture. So I was just curious, it was just one, one picture. And I spent a lot of time playing with shapes and stretching to try to get the three-dimensional depth.
Because my first reaction to it was the panorama that you actually have, and you've separated it. Like you said, it's one image, and you've done well with it. But at the same time, it's almost like a concave feeling. And I like your expression when you said, well, if I were in the bow of a boat and I was sitting behind the picture window, and then I had two, dividers here, that's what it would look like. And so you achieved that. I was just wondering what it would be like if instead of a concave, it became convex and you brought it and made it just the opposite. Because when you're looking at the focal point, which is, for most of us, that's the center. So when you're looking at the center, it's like it's at that distance and it becomes smaller. And have you ever been to Sight and Sound Theater in Lancaster?
No.
Okay. Sight and Sound has a stage, and their stage is enormous, and it's deep and everything else. But what Sight and Sound has is, like, whenever we go there to see a show, we'll go and sit in the balcony. We'll sit in the first row of the balcony, because their stage and the characters wrap around the side. And so you're seeing actors and set and everything else, and you're really getting that panorama. It's like, I would wonder what it would be if you were able, if I said this was a trapezoid and you reversed this, and this became the larger image like this, and then you tapered it back this way, and you had your center image full frame, and then tapered this one back the same way. I wonder what that effect would look like.
I don't know. I'll try it. I would have never thought of that because I was trying to make the farther away smaller and the closer larger. So if I flipped it, I don't know. I can
Yeah, I
do
don't
what
know
I
either.
think.
I don't know either. But I think again, your focal point is all about the center, and then what's happening and what's dropping away. And I think maybe that would be a better visual image. Not that this is bad. This is exactly as you described it. It's like if you were a bow of a boat and you were looking out the window, and these were the restrictions that you had. But again, it's one of those comments that when you have all this blank space, you have all this dark space, it's like you're cheating yourself. You're cheating your image. If you can bring more of the image out, and it may do what you were trying to do in a different way, simply by closing off this way.
I can fiddle with it. It takes a lot of effort taking each one and squish it. And then I had to put black stuff over, when you skew things in Photoshop, it keeps them square. So you have to black out part of them to get the trapezoidal effect.
Right.
So there's little black triangles in there that were actually put in Illustrator. I guess that's cheating in a way because it's not photographs taken by me, but it's blackness. Anyway, that's an interesting comment, and I was just curious.
Yeah.
Because I got almost no feedback on something that I had fun with.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that always intrigues me, because I rarely ever just keep an image, even with all the adjustments I'll make. I'm going beyond a little bit beyond what I see. It's like, who's the guy that says you just ought to feel what you feel? There's a couple of guys who say that who are really popular photographers.
Sure.
You know, just dream your dream, make it what you want. It's just like the scene behind me. It's a Garden of Gethsemane, and it was just a plain old shot until I painted it up a little bit, and it's hanging in our dining room.
Yep.
You know, so it's what you want to make out of it. It's the guy says, what makes your heart sing? Who is that, Ron? Who says makes your heart sing?
I don't remember.
He's a local guy. He's from Pennsylvania. Anyway, he says, do what makes your heart sing. That's what you do. So,
well, thank you for the comments.
Jerry, we have one more picture from Rich
John
this evening.
Barclay.
yes, John Barclay. Yeah, that's who it is.
This is a picture of there's another picture of the Capitol building, and I was out in front on the street there by the Lawyers Mall, and I was sort of attracted by the line of flags and the line of lit up, as the sun is setting, lit up lights, and I'm not 100% confident. In fact, I'm not confident at all that I captured what I was seeing because those lights are not standing out. The original picture I took, this is the one Ron let me replace. The flag was a little bigger and it actually touched the corner of the building, and I actually cut it out and reduced it a little bit. So I separated it from the building. But I don't know what I think about that flag sort of hanging out of the side of the picture. It was something I was focusing on when I was taking it, as that line of flags, but I like it, but I'm not sure what I think of that.
Can I just say ditto?
Yeah.
It's like because it's just hanging out there. I mean, it's a flag. That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to hang out there. But it's compositionally, I think it's a distraction. I would probably get rid of it.
Well, if I got rid of it, I think I'd have too much blank. I'm wondering is there a position? I'm going to have to go look. It's a place I can go back to. I go down there to do my walking that the doctor says I should do. And so in the evenings and on the weekends, you can park over in the Calvert Street garage for free. And it's a 3 or 4 block walk.
See,
I like that row of flags.
Well, I don't think that the flag, you know, if the flag was just touching the building, then you probably have an issue. If the flag is overlaying in a sequential way part of the building,
yeah,
like if you were able to take this flag and drop it down, I can't cut and paste, but you get my meaning. But if it looks proportionately correct to the rest of these flags, it's no big deal hanging over the building, because that would be.
I can get it down easily because that's how I got it up there away from the building.
Yeah.
So somewhere I've got the cutout copy of that flag.
So
either that or I want to stand maybe farther back with a longer lens.
Well,
maybe
of course,
I can capture it.
Yeah, that would diminish, that would compress, you know, But if you look at this distance between that flag and that flag, and then the distance between this flag and that flag, and then if you proportionately make that distance equal to whatever this is, whatever that ratio is, I think you'd be fine.
I'll play with it. Because as
That
it
makes
is,
sense.
I moved that flag up a little because it was like just barely touching the corner of the building.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that.
Well,
I can
again,
also make it smaller.
well, you could make it smaller, but again, I think the key is going to be this proportion,
Yeah,
and an
Okay.
equal proportion.
yeah. I might have to wait till a little later and get those lights to less light on the building and that row of lights that was sort of leading up to it also. I don't know.
Okay.
I've been playing a lot with taking pictures of the Capitol building because it's really easy to get to from there and trying to find different things. And anyway, thank you so much.
Okay.
I appreciate all the comments and the comments on everybody else's. You pick up a lot of stuff from that too. You don't have as much personal interest in, so you actually look at it a little with a little less emotion.
Well, this critiquing stuff is new for MPA, and even though there have been some of us who've been doing critiquing for a while, we really like the idea of critiquing instead of just judging in, out, you know, let's
Yep.
make it constructive. So MPA is working hard to emphasize this kind of review as well. Whether we call it a critique or a review, doesn't make any difference.
There's a couple of comments on there in the comment thing too, related to that, to those pictures.
Mike,
Well, yeah, it does say that may want to, or excuse me, flag gives the process, the photograph depth, and also kind of gives, you know, a meaning of what capital that is.
Right. Yeah, I opened up the chat so I can read some of this stuff as well. So the radial filter is in both RAW and Lightroom. Great.
Yes.
JC, if you're working with RAW, just, you don't have to go to Lightroom, because there's a lot of stuff that's in RAW is Lightroom.
Well,
So
they're actually the same product. They're just laid out differently.
yeah.
but we're kind of getting coming down the home stretch. I was wondering if anybody has any comments in general, maybe any lessons we learned tonight.
At some point, I'd be curious to hear what Jerry, if Jerry has any feedback as to how we might more effectively engage his commentary.
Well, I am perfectly, from my perspective, this is not a judging situation. This is a dialogue. And so any interruption, any place, and I'm not going to defend I will defend some of my comments only because I think they are helpful. I'm not going to be in competition with a photographer. That's not the critiquer's responsibility. I'm not supposed to be in competition with you, and I don't want to be in competition with you. The things I've said, you can take them or leave them. Doesn't make any difference, because eventually it's all yours. It's what you like and what you want out of the image that you're hanging on your wall. So.
Well, I have to say, this has been everything I expected it might be with you, Jerry, because the comments have been really rich and And as I know your work, you do like to attend to an awful lot of meticulous detail, because getting and most of the images you looked at tonight, it's a matter of tweaking bits
Yeah.
and pieces of a picture till you finally get it to that final level. And I like Doug's comment. You know, you get a picture, and you try a few things with it. You know, you got to be brave sometime and try something risky to see if you can get it to work. And then if it doesn't, put it aside and go back at it again. You know, I think there's some lessons like that that kind of reinforced our work ethics, I guess, with this stuff.
Yeah, and I've been discovering, I'm sure just like the rest of you, I've been doing photography for years and years and years, and it's like I've got, you know, folders that I haven't looked at in years, and I'm now going back because I've learned a little bit more. I've changed my vision, my story. What's the story I want to tell? You know, I don't mind. One guy who trained me a long time ago, or got me to switch my thinking, was a graphic designer. That was his business. He was a graphic designer. He said, Jerry, you're trying to be a perfectionist with your photography, and that's not who you are. He said, you just need to think like a painter. He says, quit adjusting the tones, and when I discovered adjustment brushes, and when I discovered the things that I can do with hue and just saturation, I love what I do now compared to what I used to do.
Yeah, you never stop learning.
No. And it's good to go back to some of that stuff.
I want to give some special thanks to all of tonight's photographers. And Louis, I'm so sorry that you had a little audio problem tonight. Maybe before the fall is out, we can find another slot and have you come back in when you get the microphone working, and have another conversation sometime. But I also enjoyed really looking at just the scope of work that we see from folks from architectural to wildlife and travel photography. It's just some amazing stuff. So
yeah,
it's been fun. It's been fun to learn from. And Jerry, thank you so much. You were the perfect choice, I believe, for our inaugural effort at critique sessions. And maybe you and I can offline debrief at some point, and you can tell me how we can do a better job of making sure that everybody gets a optimum experience out of this. And I anticipated more questions from folks than we had, but even as it is, it's still 9:16. So apologies for those of you who do want to go to bed. Mike, I think we're past your bedtime, and I appreciate you sticking it out with us on this. Mike Washington really helped me with Zoom, and I've used it a lot. I just haven't used it in this kind of an environment. And he really did help me work through the nuts and bolts to make that work. Bob Weber took a lot of time trying to make sure that we got our images together quickly back and so on. Bob, thanks so much for that. And I did want to thank Pam Treisler, who got the permission from her organizations to let us use the Zoom professional account tonight so we could have as many people as possible. And on that account, does anybody have any final parting words we need to say?
Only one, Ron.
Okay, Jackie.
With my treasurer hat on, just a reminder that your dues must be paid, and that means the check has to clear the bank before you can compete in the competition this month. Thank you.
And she is a stickler on that, so absolutely.
One other thing too, thank you very much for taking the time. You guys did a great job. Thank you.
Yes,
Mr.
I agree.
Taylor, thank you, Ron.
Okay.
Thanks very much for all your comments, and thanks for your help. I'll get into Photoshop, Camera Raw. Probably gonna go try to learn Lightroom. Sounds like it's a lot easier.
Hey, Ron,
Yes.
I'll make one parting shot.
Yep.
Because you asked the question, how are we going to, if we start doing more and more critiques as MPA? All the photographers here have been so used to sit down, be quiet, let the judge make the decision, and don't criticize. And we've been used to that. We've been used to that judging situation, and there's a place for the judging and there's a place for critiquing. So I think once people become more familiar with critiquing, I think they'll be more open to discussing and saying things.
Yeah.
But it's hard to teach old dogs new tricks.
Well, we got another one coming up next month, and I look forward to that one. By the way, our critique leader for next month will be Greg Holden. For those of you who remember Greg as a judge in the past, Jerry, you may remember him. He's does some really outstanding work. So with all that said, we're going to try to record this particular meeting, and we have recorded this particular meeting. We'll try to get it cleaned up and up on not Facebook, I'm sorry, on
YouTube.
YouTube, yes, next week at some point. Anyway, going past everybody's bedtime, thanks so much for a good evening. Take care.
Don't forget to stop the recording.
If I can find the button, we'll be good to go.